This used to be a free country, you communists. You're a communist.
I'm a communist. I'm a communist, yeah. What are you, a moron? Go away.
Must be, yeah.
Go away.
To you.
Go away. You take photos to put onto websites to incite people to hurt people.
No, that's what your people do.
To incite people to violence. No, we don't.
I disagree with
violence.
violence.
You don't take photographs of me.
Off you go.
Why? Or what?
I don't care, mate.
Okay, don't worry. Hello, mate. Let the lady through. Come on, you thugs.
Off you go. I know what you want to do, be a martyr. Just go up the road.
Don't be a martyr, just do a bit of filming.
Just go up the road, right? Just go up the road.
You'd like to give us an interview, Cole?
National front, right? Yeah, fine, it's national front. Do whatever you do. The anti-homophobia deny right for us. Tony Martin, who's banned from Facebook, who asked you government.
How do you feel about the Labour Party wanting to replace the white working class?
Oh, you are National Front, aren't you?
That's right, yeah.
You're a fascist, you don't talk.
Well, no, I'm not actually, but I was just willing to ask you a question.
I don't talk to Nazis, really.
Okay, fair enough. Hi everyone, thanks for coming on. Almost forgot to add myself to the stage then, so hopefully everything's working all right. I see we've got a few comments in there, so hi everyone, thanks for... Yeah. Let's put a few of them up quickly just to... Yep, so thanks for coming on, everyone. I'm back in London at the moment because I'm going to Warwick on Saturday for PA's protest, which is at 12 o'clock in Warwick, a short walk from the train station. So I've got my train ticket sorted for that, and I'll be going up there. And then on Tuesday, I'll be going along to Highbury Corner Magistrates Court to see the sentencing of Liron Woodcock-Velleman, who, to be fair, I believe he's going to get a non-custodial. I'll be surprised if he does get a custodial, because we all know that there's a two-tier justice system in Britain, and the fact that he's worked for organisations like Hope Not Hate and the Jewish Labour Movement and his North London synagogue will get him, will act as a mitigating circumstance and show that he's a supposed good character. When if it was one of us, having worked for the National Front or the BNP, or even more so volunteering for the National Front or the BNP, it'd be used against us. It's also worth remembering that his solicitor, according to the newspapers, they may have misprinted it, but according to the newspapers, the last time he was in court, the solicitor said that he was of good character as opposed to previous good character. So I don't know if that was a slip up or if that was misquoted. I would have thought that's got to be misquoted. I wouldn't have thought any solicitor would have the nerve to stand in court and say that someone's of good character when they've committed such a terrible crime. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. I agree, a slap on the wrist. Yep. So again, I'm going to be out there. Obviously, I can't film in the court or take photos or anything like that. But hopefully, when he comes out, I can ask him a few questions. Maybe film him if he's celebrating. It'd be nice to see someone from Hope Not Hate there with him, but I doubt that they'd actually show their faces there. So it'd definitely be interesting what goes on there. So we've got an interesting week ahead. So I'll probably have more to say next week than this week. I'll be putting up quite a few videos this week. So we'll see what happens there. I've got a couple of little stories on here. It's Lucy Connolly, who I'm probably people have heard this story already, who was, in my opinion, persecuted a couple of years ago for a tweet she sent, and apparently she's done was it a subject access request she's done? Well, I think it's a subject access request. But whatever she's done, she's contacted the police to find out what happened with her case, and it turns out that that it was deliberately pushed through by the. It says here Lucy Connolly had her prosecution, or we'd call it persecution, for stirring up racial hatred fast-tracked for approval by Lord Hermer, the Attorney General, official documents show. So the whole time they were claiming that there was no two-tier justice system. I'm not that keen on Lucy Connolly. I don't agree with a lot of what she says, but it's clear that she was persecuted. They claimed there was no two-tier justice. We saw Muslims with weapons not getting arrested. We saw the far left getting away with a lot. Ricky Jones had what I believe would have been a show trial. I wasn't actually there because I was in Northern Ireland at the time, but it looks to me like he used the claim that there was razor blades behind stickers in his defence, which was actually a fabrication as well. So he should have been in more trouble for that rather than getting off. But with Lucy Connolly's case, it was fast-tracked to prosecute her. She was kept in. She was threatened with remand. And again, a lot of the people that pleaded guilty, the way the far left and the media sort of gloat about things as if pleading guilty is proof of guilt. And it might seem a bit strange to say that it isn't, but in a lot of people's cases, they're in a situation where they're looking to spend so long on remand that they'd actually, even if found not guilty, they'd end up doing more prison time than they would do for a guilty plea. So it's a matter of getting punished, whether you're guilty or innocent, or whether you're found guilty or not guilty. So it's good that she's pushed for that, and hopefully something can come of it, because the justice system and the judiciary is supposed to be separate. Individual decisions are meant to be separate of government. But when you've got the Prime Minister and when you've got the Prime Minister and the Attorney General wading in on things, it doesn't seem very independent to me. Again, they often quote that justice should be done and should be seen to be done. Well, what they mean by that is that not seen to be done by ordinary members of the public, people affected, whether the accused or the victims. When they mean seen to be done, they mean by the media. They mean things like the Daily Mail can be able to convict someone of murder and put their pictures in the newspaper calling them murderers long before they've been convicted of any crime. I'm talking about this Stephen Lawrence case, and then eventually be convicted with what I don't consider to be a fair trial anyway. But there's a good chance they did do it, but they definitely didn't get a fair trial. So there's a few other things to talk about. A few people said to me about watching. I've left it a bit long now, but a few people said to me a while ago about watching the Piers Morgan interview with Nick Fuentes, and I finally got around to watching it. So I apologise for taking too long for that. I say watching it; I was more listening to it because I had it on my headphones. But I found it very, very interesting. I don't know if everyone on here has seen that. On the whole, I think Nick Fuentes tore Piers Morgan apart. I think the one bit that Piers Morgan got the better of him was when he was talking about his father, because although it doesn't seem fair to bring up someone's family, when they brought it up themselves, and it's only talking about a quote that he said, I never speak about my family. I speak about Shaz, because she's the same way as me politically, and she doesn't mind me talking about her. I never speak about my parents or my siblings or anything like that, because it is none of anyone's business, and I try and keep it that way. Because Nick Fuentes had previously brought up his father, and in his anecdote, I think he was making a bit much of it, trying to claim that Piers Morgan was out of order for that. But on the whole, I think he was completely all over him on it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play a quick 2-minute segment of it now, and then I'm going to talk about it. I'll talk about it once it's finished.
You might get shot. You might get mugged. Someone might run up.
Oh, I pressed the wrong button there.
You might get shot, you might get mugged, someone might run up on you. And I tell my followers, it is better to be perceived as racist or racist and walk the other way and maybe keep your life than to say, I'm a good anti-racist. I don't mind that this person's making me uncomfortable. Maybe he's looking a little froggy. I'm going to sit down because I'm a good person and get stabbed, mugged, whatever. And by the way, this is a strategy. They call it the friendly stranger. There's a crew of them. They do this in Chicago. They stand outside bars, black people. They approach strangers. It's a robbery crew. And they pretend to be a friendly stranger, and then they mug them. And stupid white people say, oh, hi, yeah, nice to meet you. You know, they grin, they laugh, they put up with the nonsense, and then they get mugged, or worse. Sometimes they get executed. And so as a white person,
how do you feel about mass shootings at school?
I think they're bad.
Who do you think commits the vast majority of the mass shootings?
I'm sure it's
schools?
white people.
Right. So how do you feel about that?
I think that white people do more antisocial violence. I think black people participate in more gang violence. I think that's the difference.
What's the difference to the victims?
There's no difference to the victim, but it's a different kind of crime. And it's a different proportion also. Do you know what percentage of white people are school shooters?
I know that the vast majority of mass shootings in schools in America this century were perpetrated by young white men. And I'm
what proportion?
I'm curious. What
proportion?
I'm curious whether your advice would be to people who have kids in these schools.
Is my mic working? What proportion?
Should they avoid white people at school? Should people with the kids at school avoid young white men at school?
No.
Okay.
Do you know what per capita means? Do you know proportionality? There are more black people proportionally that engage in violent crime or are involved in gangs, especially in these major cities, than there are white people that are school shooters compared to the entire white population. And everybody understands that.
Yeah, so that was a small clip of it. Nick Fuentes had mentioned that around 5% of black men will either have or will eventually murder somebody. 5%, so like 1 in 20. And this is before the bit that I've just shown you. And then Piers Morgan had his team of researchers. That's it. He can't go on and just debate someone on his own. Although I suppose it's interesting to have the researchers to get up to the minute and information and statistics. But he claims that it was only 1%, and that was put across as if that's a good thing. Aren't blacks wonderful? Only 1% of them are murderers. But you're talking about murder. You're not talking about like shoplifting or something. Even if it was just 1%, it would still be. It would still be terrible. But I think the reason their statistics were so different, I don't think either statistic was in itself wrong. But I think Nick Fuentes was talking, was probably including cult, because just under half of the murders in America, nobody gets punished for them. They don't get solved. So Piers Morgan was talking about, I believe he was talking about people that have already been convicted, not people that would go on to commit murder, and not people that have already committed murder but not been convicted of it. And I say just under half go unsolved. A lot of them are probably played down. There's probably like a plea bargain or something like that, and they're not actually convicted of murder, even though they've murdered someone. So probably both statistics are right, but they're looking at it from different ways. But in the segment that I just showed you, where Piers Morgan found one criteria, one particular type of murder where white people are just as likely, or roughly the same likeliness, to commit the murder as blacks, which is school shootings. In America, according to Piers Morgan, in America, the white population is 65%, and they make up around 2/3 of school shootings. Basically, 65% is basically 2/3 anyway, slightly under. So it's roughly the same statistics. So for one category of murder, white people are just as likely to commit it as black people. But then I would have thought for virtually every other category of murder, blacks are more likely to commit them than whites, and by a great margin. Like I said, between 1% and 5%, whether you're looking at people that have actually been convicted of murder, or whether you're looking at people that have got away with it as well, and people that are yet to commit the murders. So if you just think that is like a terrible statistic, and again, in America, most of the blacks there have lived there for generations. It's not as if like most of the ones in Britain are like straight out of Africa or the Caribbean or somewhere. A lot of them are born here as well, but you would, from what the left claim about opportunity and things like that, you would have thought that the blacks in America would be a lot more civilized than the blacks in Britain, particularly the ones that have come directly from Africa or Jamaica. But it just goes to show that they're not. So I thought it was a good. I thought it was a good show, a good debate. Like I said, I think Nick Fuentes beat him on virtually everything. I thought Fuentes was a bit weak when they spoke about the Holocaust as well. I won't go into too much detail about things like that. But yeah, I think he pulled him apart on virtually every category. And what I always think when I watch anything, whether I'm watching the guy who interviewed Steve Laws the other week, or anyone, when they speak to anyone who's a racial nationalist or is generally just being accused of racism, I always think, would they apply? Well, I think we know the answer, but would they apply the same logic to a black man? Again, I didn't show this bit. I didn't want to show too much of the interview, but he was talking about when his father didn't want to eat in black restaurants when he was growing up. I think it had originally been said as a bit of a joke, a bit of an anecdote. But would he say the same thing to an Indian or an Asian who wouldn't want to eat Indian food cooked by a white chef? If somebody says that a chef needs to, they often say that we need immigration in order to have curries, not that just surely white people can cook curries, but the left put across that we need them in order to be able to eat their food, although it's completely different to what they eat. But then when a white person says that, or I think Fuentes' father's sort of 3/4 white, when a white or partially white person says that, it's considered to be terrible. But when someone of another race says it, again, it's just considered acceptable. And this is our country. I know he's in America, which is their country, a white country as well. It's not as if we're going abroad and pushing these views on people in their own countries. I saw earlier they were digging out what's his name, Robert Jenrick, for comments he made about not seeing enough white people. I think it's Rob Jenrick. I apologise if I've got that wrong. I don't want to get sued for saying anything on here. But was it Starmer who said one of the Labour Party was complaining about that? But that he's complained about that in certain places you hardly see any white people, and it implied that that's a bad thing. But then when Baroness Lawrence complains that sometimes she's the only black face in the House of Lords, it's seen as if that we've failed, or the system's failed, or the country's failed, and that something needs to be done about it. Not just, well, you shouldn't see the colour of people's skins. Virtually, the point I'm getting at is all these supposed anti-racists, they're racist themselves, and they're racist in many cases against their own race. Complete and utter traitors. And like I said, if I ever get challenged with anything like that, I'm just going to ask them, would they ask the same of a person of colour, or a coloured person, as they used to be called? One's offensive, one isn't. And the answer is, I believe, the answer is no. You might get the odd exception that would say it. You've got Black Pound Day and various things like that, and and blacks encouraging people to use other black businesses and things. No one ever complains. Well, I complain about it, and other white racial nationalists complain about it. But in the mainstream, nobody complains about it. It's just considered acceptable because they hold a lower standard to blacks than they do white people, which technically makes them white supremacists, believe it or not. But yeah, so that's it about those couple of things. And the other point is I've been digging out Zach Polanski quite a bit lately. I know a lot of people like to call him David Poland, which is the name he used up until he was about 18. But I'm okay calling him Zach Polanski. I think, to be fair, I think it comes across a little bit sort of pathetic when people make a big deal out of something like that. Like you get people like Kevin Maguire, who is always going on about Tommy Robinson and has to always say real name Stephen Lexley Lennon, and that when basically if someone wants to be known by a name, know them, that you might as well just use that name. It's not worth making a big deal unless people are trying to pretend to be multiple people or something like that. Then it's worth pulling it on. But anyway, Polanski has weighed into the sentencing. The court case. Was it yesterday or today? That the Palestine Action protesters, it says protesters, they're violent criminals, over break-in that left policewoman with shattered spine, it says here. Green Party leader Zach Polanski has been branded disgusting for gloating about the jury failing to convict Palestine Action protesters over a break-in at an Israel defense firm, which left a policewoman with a shattered spine. Basically, obviously, as everyone's probably aware, I'm not a supporter of Israel. I think the genocide they're committing in Palestine is absolutely disgusting, as is their influence on America and Britain and various other countries. So I'm in no way sticking up for Israel or any of their policies or crimes or anything like that, or any of their companies. But from what I've read in about the case, the policewoman was sort of knelt down on the ground arresting somebody for committing a crime. Whether you think they was right to commit that crime or not is a separate issue. And then a man hit a female police officer from behind with a sledgehammer. I don't think the injury was as bad as they make out, 'cause he was only off work for 3 months, when you'd have thought that it would have been years if it was really serious. But again, she said that she thought her spine had been smashed. She was in a lot of agony, and it's absolutely disgusting. And the far left were making a big thing about some of the people that rioted having had the police called on them over domestic arguments, not even necessarily assault, and that. So when it suits them, they make a big deal out of it. But then one of their activists, one of their thugs, seriously assaults a policewoman from behind with a weapon. They celebrate them getting off. From what I read in the article, it looks like they didn't find a verdict on the sledgehammer attack. So I think 3 of them are still going to have to be retried, whereas most of them have got off. But when it comes to direct action, there is a place for it, but you can't just completely be taking the law into your own hands. I think we've got a lot of justification. We've got a lot of justification for a lot of things, but if everybody who thought they had a right to do something did it, we'd have complete and utter anarchy, which is what these people want. So, and people like Zach Polanski celebrate that. When I'm sure if one of us went up to him and just shouted in his face without even touching him, he'd be saying how terrified he was, crying and trying to get people sent to prison. When it's absolutely it's absolutely pathetic to be celebrating a group that do that. Again, it's made out that they're being punished for protesting. They're not. They've committed violent attacks on a police officer. They've interfered with Britain's, not in this particular case, which is at a factory, but at an RAF base. They've interfered with Britain's ability to defend herself if attacked, and they need to be punished. There's a lot more reason for banning Palestine Action than there was for banning National Action, and also with National Action was banned, they banned people from associating with each other and various things like that. People have gone to prison. I'm not going to mention any names here, but I know of a couple of people at least who've gone to prison just for meeting up with other people for drinks because they were all involved in National Action, not for actually going out there holding placards up saying National Action or anything like that. But these Palestine Action people have been doing that. They've been deliberately getting themselves arrested for supporting a prescribed organisation, and then they pretend that they've been arrested for protesting, which I went along to a Palestine protest in Belfast last weekend, and I don't think there was any arrests. I didn't see any arrests, but nobody, though, that they had their right to protest, and they carried out that right. I was a bit disgusted by some of the flags and some of the things that they said, but I don't believe any laws were broken, and they were allowed the right to protest. There was even a guy there who was awaiting trial for a previous incident at a protest, which, from what I understand, nearly everyone, I've never been arrested on a protest, but most people that I've spoke to, if they're awaiting trial for something that happened on a protest, they're not allowed to go on any protests. And sometimes with movements, the numbers have really been killed off by that because they've actually had hundreds of people awaiting trial for various different things, and they're not allowed to go on anything political. But that only seems to work one way, which, in my opinion, is again proof of a two-tier justice system where the system is the punishment. And so I support the Palestinians' right to self-determination, and I'm against Israel and what they do to them. And everyone should have the right to protest for that. But when someone's pushing for supporting a prescribed organisation or part of a prescribed organisation, then they're going to get in trouble. I think all the people that I know that were involved in National Action years ago, all understand that. And all the people that weren't involved who think that it's a bit unfair that they got, or very unfair that they got banned, don't just take to the streets and hold up signs supporting them. If we got a couple of hundred people together in London next week outside Downing Street with signs saying National Action, we'd be arrested for it, and the left would be supporting it. They'd try and make out that we try to overthrow the country or something just by holding up signs, but it doesn't work that way when they do it. Yeah. Oh, also back to the Lucy Connolly thing. Again, like I said, she's recently found out that it was Lord Hermer that pushed the case to be prosecuted. But I also saw a tweet the other day from Nick Lowles. I'm looking on his Twitter now. He may have taken it down, but can't seem to see it now. He might have taken this down. But while I'm looking for that, I'll just say as well about Hope Not Hate, how the Charities Commission said that they needed to separate and make it clear that the charity, which is now called Hope Unlimited, and Hope Not Hate, to make it clear that they are separate organisations. But I've been on their Hope Not Hate's LinkedIn page, and it says there that it still says Hope Not Hate. What's it called? Hope Not Hate Charitable Foundation is a registered charity at so and so, and it appears to say, or it implies, that Hope Not Hate and Hope Not Hate Charitable Trust, now Hope Unlimited, are one and the same. Also on their American website, it says how they're applying for charitable status up there as well. How long ago was it he said that? I think I've gone past it. I'm still looking for the thing that I can't seem to find the tweet at the moment, but he did say something that that he claimed that Lucy Connolly called for people to burn down hotels housing asylum seekers, and that's not what she actually said, or it's deliberately missed a bit out where she said, "For all I care." She wasn't calling on anyone to do that. So it completely twists what she said. And this is a woman who's in danger of being attacked. Her picture's been everywhere. People could recognise her in the street. She could be attacked because of scumbags like Nick Lowell's putting out disinformation about her. Like I said, I always, if I get anything wrong, I'll apologise, I'll remove it. I do. It's normally a slip of the tongue where I say something or that's incorrect, and I normally do either remove it or edit bits out. Zach Polanski was an MP when he's an assembly member. Yeah, I'm still looking for that. He might have taken it down for once. He's pretty, unless he was replying to someone else. Yeah. But they're absolute lowlifes. Like I said, claiming that ICE murdered that guy in America the other week as well. It's an inflamed situation, and people like Nick Lowell's just make it worse by getting involved in it. Because people actually believe what they say. I know obviously we don't, but I see what else we got in the. Is your ceiling bird? I think is that my seat? Is my seat making a noise? I was making some sort of noise, yeah. Yeah, everything you say makes perfect sense. So much corruption in our government now, all funded by Israeli banker, family globalist WEF. Yep. I call him the titty hypnotist. Yeah. Again, imagine if one of us had done that, had been charging people to hypnotise them to give them bigger breasts, and that would never at the end of it. I lived in Croydon from 73 to 2022. I'm fairly qualified to know no good comes from the black community. Yep. I was walking through Croydon yesterday, and I saw they got a big, it's like a temporary mural and a holding of, what's his name now? The black composer. I say black composer. What is his name? I'm just going to quickly. Samuel Coleridge Taylor. And they make a big thing about him because he was black and a composer, and I'm sure that's very rare. But they never play any of his music because it was mediocre at best. And from what I've heard about him, his mother was white, and his dad was a Creole, so he had some white in him as well. So he was basically less than half black. And then in black tradition, his father left I think before he was born, and went back to Africa. So I don't think he'd ever even met anyone who was black and related to him. He might not have even met anyone who was black back then. But it was basically someone who was just over half white, who lived in a white household, a privileged household with money, and went on to become a composer. And seems absolutely ridiculous to be trying to push it forward as some sort of black heritage, like as if he grew up in a mud hut somewhere and taught himself to play the violin and landed up composing or something ridiculous like that. He was a he was an upper class person with all the privileges that most people haven't even got today, let alone back in his day. And they try and make out that he's committed, that he's done some sort of great achievement or something like that, when he's basically had everything handed to him on a plate, and he's landed up being a mediocre composer. I'm sure there was other mediocre composers around, and I'm sure it was probably similar to nowadays with modern music. You get a lot of it produced, some of it celebrated at the time, some of it nobody even listens to at the time, and then 10, 20 years later, maybe 100 years later in the case of classical music, but people are still listening to some of the songs, and most of it has fallen by the wayside. Opinion on Wikipedia article for National Front. I'll just look that up. I've seen it before. I think it's basically the terminology, and that's mainly the thing that is wrong with it, from what I can remember. But I'll say one good thing for it. At least it's got the right website now. I remember about 10 years ago, they kept putting up the wrong website, and I kept changing it, and I think they banned me from changing it when I'm correcting it, and they said that I should try it. It said, you're obviously involved with the National Front. Please contribute to articles that you're not involved in. It's like, I'm not doing this out of the goodness of my heart to try and help Wikipedia. I'm doing it because I want the correct information about the National Front to be out there. And for ages it had the wrong website up there. I think now we're probably the only website claiming to be the National Front, so that's why we've got the correct thing on it. But yeah, but it's mainly the language they use there, Scott. Here, the National Front is a far right fascist with a small f political party in the United Kingdom. It's currently led by Tony Martin, a minor party. It has never had representatives in the British or European Parliament. But where does it get the word fascist from? Basically, because it's been said a lot, not because anybody has actually said we are fascist, which fascists obviously would say. There's no real reasoning behind it. I think the only reason they say it is because it's been said a lot by a lot of liars. Remember Granaries Club, Tony? Yeah, I went in there once, I think, because it was that was the black club, but it was open a lot later than anywhere else. I went in there with a couple of friends. It was very moody. They clearly didn't like us being in there. If I'm thinking of the right place, yeah. I think it was like the first black-owned club in Croydon, I think. All right, yeah. Thanks for changing that. I don't know how long ago was that it got changed for the right website. But it's yeah, like I said, it's so biased. Like what they do is they go off academic papers. There's loads of people. There's actually degrees in post-Second World War fascism and things like that. And there's lots of people, there's probably a few people studying them. But this is the kind of thing that gets funded by NGOs and people like George Soros. And that's a lot of the opposition we meet, both people campaigning and protesting, are students. And I think it's part of their sort of education to be attending these protests. That's why there's so many students going along. Yeah, I think most of the information is probably just twisted. There's probably some truth in a lot of it. It's got here the 1977 Battle of Lewisham, blah blah blah, like that. And it's got, yeah, its popularity was raised through street marches and rallies, which often resulted in violent clashes with anti-fascist protesters. So what that actually means is that, I say we because I wasn't about them, but we were attacked by the far left, and most of the far left, from how I understand it, from speaking to people like Richard Edmonds and Martin Webster and others, that most of the violence was directed by the far left at the police. I know some of our people did get attacked and some were badly hurt, but the majority of the violence, and this is celebrated by the far left. It goes back long before the National Front, to like the before the Second World War, when you had what they call, again, the Battle of Cable Street, when it's absolutely sickening, even to be calling them the battles, Battle of Cable Street, Battle of Lewisham, and things like that. All it is mindless thugs attacking the police, and like whenever there's any violence on what they call a right wing protest, again everyone gets condemned for it. People who've defended themselves gets slagged off and end up going to prison and things like that. But when the far left do it, when the far left are attacking the police and rolling marbles under police horses, again, where do all these animal rights people involved in Antifa and things like that, where do they stand on that? Is it great fun to roll marbles under police horses? Like, obviously, with a horse, if it breaks its leg, it needs to be put down. It's not like a person where you can sit in a wheelchair and go around on crutches and things like that, because horses can't support their sort of body weight too long lying down. If a horse breaks its leg, it needs to be, as far as I'm aware, it needs to be put down. I don't know if they can do anything with swimming pools or anything to, or pressure suits or anything like that to not put them down. But as far as I'm aware, and definitely back then, if a horse breaks its leg, it gets put down. I don't know if any horses did break their legs at Cable Street, but there was definitely the opportunity there with scumbags rolling marbles underneath them. Yeah, it's complete and utter double standards. Again, with Hope Not Hate, they named their podcast after the 43 group, who used to go around attacking political meetings. And one of their big gotchas with Matthew Collins is what they claim was the attack on Welling Library, which I've spoken to people that were actually there, and it didn't go down anything like what Matthew Collins said. Obviously, I wasn't there, so I can't say for definite, but people that I trust, people that I've spoken to a lot, say that they went there to speak and the far left attacked them. And like I said, they're people that I trust who've never lied to me. I know to be honourable people have told me that. And then Matthew Collins, who's a proven liar, says different. So it's up to anyone who they wish to believe. But I'll definitely believe the decent people over him. But even if it did go down as described by Matthew Collins, it only would have been, I'm trying to not squeak my chair too much, so that don't let the budgies out. Put my hands in front of me, I think. So even if it did go down as Matthew Collins said, it would have been no worse than the 43 group who they celebrate attacking meetings. So it's complete and utter double standards, really. I did have a few other things to speak about. Oh, that was it. Yeah, there's the terrorists to be held in US-style supermax prisons. There's a picture of David Lammy here visiting a prison. I'll probably put that up when I edit the video. Britain's most dangerous extremist prisoners will be kept in supermax units similar to those in US jails, David Lammy has announced. Offenders will be largely held in solitary confinement, eating, exercising and sleeping alone 24/7 under a high security prison regime similar to ADX Florence, the Supermax in Colorado, nicknamed the Alcatraz of the Rockies. In the article, they're talking about terrorists. So when you're talking about actual terrorists, that sounds pretty reasonable, but we all know what's likely to happen if that does happen. There will be Muslim terrorists put in there like that. And then also they will put white nationalist political people in there, people that have considered terrorists for doing a poster or leaflets or something completely non-violent rather than what normal people would consider terrorism, and we'll be treated the same way because it's bad publicity for them. If it comes out a year after they start them that 99 or 100% of the prisoners in there are all Muslims, probably the far left would be more up in arms than the Muslims would be, but there'd be a lot of flack for it. So what they do is they try and balance it. So there'd be a load of white people in there as well who've committed no more terrorism than putting up posters saying it's okay to be white. Again, talking about terrorism, I've mentioned this a few times, but I got stopped under the Terrorism Act, Schedule 7 of the Terrorism Act at Southend Airport. I think it was in 2019. And they went through my phone, they went through all my emails and everything like that. And they didn't even have to tell me why I've been stopped. They just said that my name had been flagged up. And things like that. But then you've got Peter Mandelson, who was already known to be associated with a known paedophile in America, Jeffrey Epstein. And it seems that there was less checks done on him to become the British ambassador to America than there was on me just going through Southend Airport. Surely you would have thought, especially when there's cause for concern, especially when someone's got a dodgy past, you'd think they'd want access to all his emails, and if he says no, say, well, you haven't got the job. From what I've seen of what's happening at the moment, I'm obviously going to have to be very careful what I say because it's an ongoing cases. I think to some degree Starmer's using that as an excuse not to come out with anything, but to some degree obviously that is true. But to me it looks like he's committed treason. If he has done, again, he's not been convicted of any of this yet, but if he has done what I've heard on GB News and other media outlets, that he was passing information about proposed government policy to Jeffrey Epstein as soon as he heard it, then at the very best it's insider trading, but more likely that is treason. And if he is guilty, again, he hasn't been convicted of anything yet, but if he is found guilty, in my opinion, he should hang for it. Without the death penalty, he should at least do a lot of years in prison. But we all know it's double standards. We all know if it was someone doing a more menial job, someone who was just a secretary there, who passed some less damaging information to an enemy, who Jeffrey Epstein, whether he's working for Israel or working on his own, was an enemy of Britain, an enemy of America, and things like that. That is treason for me. So. Do you believe the government plant anti-protesters at events to stir up issues? Yeah, they probably do to some degree. You've had all this people working undercover with the far left, and the way it's being portrayed in the media is as if they were trying to entrap the far left, which they might have been doing to some degree. But when they were trying to get them to burn a bookshop down, whether or not that was part of the case or not, there was the other guy, Mark Stone or Mark Kennedy. One was his real name, one was his pseudonym, who was involved with animal rights groups and with the far left, Antifa and people like that, several years ago, and he was seen protesting against the BNP and things like that, and then so a lot of it is used to attack us. So I don't know how many. I don't think they really got any convictions on the far left, but I think they were just agitating them. And I think with Mark Stone, it was either £50,000 or £100,000 a year expenses he had. But how much does it cost to pretend to be a smelly student or a smelly lefty? Surely that 50 or 100 grand, whatever it was, must have been used. Drugs, funding events, maybe transport or something like that, and causing them to attack people. So it's definitely very, very dodgy. I've done a freedom of information request years ago, and they said it was like too secret or whatever. They wouldn't tell me. But I wanted to know if he paid for any transport or anything like that. But like I said, if you want to go along and pretend to be out of work or to be doing some sort of menial job, it doesn't cost any money to do that. You just put on some scruffy clothes or something and go down there. But they were spending mega money on doing it, so they must have been funding the far left as well as infiltrating them. I assume this is white people that have posted on Facebook. I assume that's for the Supermax prisons and whatever like that. Yeah. The Zach Palensky thing, Lucy Connolly thing. Yes, again with Starmer, he knew that about Epstein beforehand. He claims he didn't. He was even, according to GB News, he was quite coy about his wording. He done some going around the houses talking about. I'm not even going to try and say it because I'll probably get it wrong. But he didn't actually say that Mandelson had lied to him. Starmer said that whatever he'd done, but he'd sort of like implied something. But surely, if you're interviewing someone for a very senior position and they imply something, you ask them to affirm themselves and to say exactly what they mean. If someone's sort of going around the houses with something, it's like, well, did you or didn't you? Yes or no? Not just accept what they say. And apparently a journalist had actually, before he was appointed, when Keir Starmer was still leader of the opposition, at some sort of press conference, a journalist asked him about Mandelson and was he aware of something. So he must have known about it, even if he didn't read a Financial Times article that it was written in. Just from being asked the questions, he should have been aware of it. And again, it's not reasonable to expect the Prime Minister or leader of the opposition or whatever he was at the time to read every newspaper. But you would have thought somebody on the cabinet must have read that newspaper. Somebody in their staff must have read that newspaper. One of their activists must have read that newspaper. But yet nobody in the Labour Party said, hang on, Starmer, what are you doing appointing this man? If he said he was only barely knew Epstein, he's lying, he stayed at his house. He stayed at Epstein's house. I think Epstein was in prison, but he stayed in his apartment in New York or something. Obviously, some sort of favour. But Starmer made out that he didn't know. But it'd been in a paper, so somebody in the Labour Party must have known. Somebody should have told him. Again, it goes back. I probably shouldn't slag Starmer off too much, because if he does resign, hopefully he won't resign, because the people looking to take over, you're going to have David Lammy as a temporary, then it'll be either Angela Rayner or Steve Reid or someone that'll take over as the next Prime Minister. So hopefully he won't resign. But he's got this arrogance about him. He looks, whenever he's in trouble, he looks like he's going to cry. It looks like if he was in the army or even at school, the teacher or the sergeant would just say you look pathetic when you sort of stood there getting told off and practically crying. But he stands there on the thing and he's completely unable to take criticism. It's like, it's not my fault, it's everybody else's fault. I did everything right. And things like that. Like he says, it's a vicious smear by far-right extremists, or it might have even been neo-Nazis, he said, I can't remember. It's a vicious smear that I didn't prosecute Jimmy Savile, but obviously he didn't prosecute Jimmy Savile because Jimmy Savile wasn't prosecuted. But you could look at it from one point of view and say that he might not have actually seen the casework. He might not have actually seen the folder on Jimmy Savile, but you would have thought if you're running an organisation and something happens that's high profile, you would have thought your staff would be instructed to bring it to you. Obviously, you wouldn't deal with every case, but either a particularly bad case, which that was, or someone who's high profile, which Jimmy Savile was, you would expect it to be escalated right up to the top, which it may have been. Apparently, it wasn't. But either he hadn't instructed his staff properly on what to do, that wasn't a priority, or he's lying. And again, while he was head of the Crown Prosecution Service, they did one thing supposedly very well. I don't know how accurate this is, but from what he said himself, they massively increased the amount of prosecutions for domestic violence, which, if it is true, and it doesn't include too many people being, I say too many, one's too many, but it doesn't include people being fitted up. If that is true, then that is a good thing. But he's perfectly willing to take the praise for what is considered to be a success of the Crown Prosecution Service. He's perfectly happy to take the bow and say, I've prosecuted all these domestic violence people and that. But then when something didn't go right, when they've either got something wrong or worse, deliberately failed the British people and been corrupt, he just says, oh no, that was all the people below me. But it would have been the people below him that would have been prosecuting the people for domestic violence as well. I say kind of it both ways. Clearly he can, and he does. But surely you can't just say, right, I'll take the credit for everything that goes right, and everything that goes wrong, I'll blame the people below me, which is what Keir Starmer seems to do again and again. And he just looks like he's standing there wanting to cry. He probably sees himself as the real victim. Not if it's true about Mandelson passing that information to Epstein, it's probably cost the British taxpayer billions by information getting into the hands of Zionists and international traders and people like that. It's probably cost the taxpayer billions. And that's the one case of it that we know about. It's highly unlikely that he just started doing it all of a sudden. He was probably doing it for years. And even, do you remember, was it his Brazilian lover that he fiddled the passport for to come over or something? Like he did something where he used governmental influence to get a passport for his Brazilian lover. So that was known about. So even if all these Epstein things weren't known about, or even if they hadn't happened, he clearly wasn't a suitable person to be the British ambassador to America. There's a whole load of people that work in the diplomatic service all their careers. I know sometimes it helps to have someone who's a bit more well-known in a position like that. But you would have thought the amount of knowledge that you need to do that job, it'd be better given to someone who'd worked for a long time in the diplomatic service, who'd worked their way up. It's similar to cabinet reshuffles, where 1 minute someone's the Minister for Education, then they're the Minister for Defence, then they're the Home Secretary, and things like that. How much can even the most intelligent person know about every single different job? How well can they keep an eye on their department? I know I've been in the situation before at work, and I'm sure a lot of other people have done before, when you land up with someone in charge of you who hasn't got a clue what they're doing, and you realise how much they rely on you, and you know what you can get away with. And I would have thought it's like that in every government department, where they've got a nitwit of a minister running it. Or even if they're not a nitwit, someone who's just moved across, who's got no experience in that job, who the civil servants can just run rings around. So again, it's just the same. It's all the jobs for the boys as well. I'm sure Mandelson would be. I doubt he'd do any prison time over it. He might get a year or something and land in some sort of luxury prison. He'd probably be in like full open prison or somewhere like that, rather than doing hard time like he deserves. And even if he did do, like I say, it wouldn't be hard time, but even if he did do a proper prison, he wouldn't be in danger of being attacked by anyone. Yeah. Has anyone got anything else they want to talk about? Like I said, hopefully I'll have a lot more to talk about next week, because we'll have the PA's Patriotic Alternatives protest on Saturday, which is at 12 o'clock if anyone's going in Warwick. And then also we got Liron Velleman's sentencing on the Tuesday, and also on the Tuesday Nick Lowles is being interviewed by Left Foot Forward. You can get tickets off Eventbrite for free. I've got one already, so hopefully I'll be watching that when I get in. It'd be nice if I could find out where the venue was, because I'd much rather turn up and be there in person. But the only tickets available are for the Zoom call. I think it's a Zoom call, whatever it is. So there's all that going on. So hopefully be a more interesting meeting next week. Oh, Kilo. Oh, yeah, I remember. Yeah, it was good to meet you. Yeah, that was yeah. What was that? Is that about? Yeah, it must have been 2 or 3 years ago. We met in in Victoria. Yeah. What was it? There was some sort of protest going on that day. I think that wasn't there. I think if I remember. Yeah, I'm going to keep doing the live streams. We don't get that many views, but it's nice to be able to sort of chat with people, and it'd be nice to build it up gradually. I'll be looking to get some guests on here eventually. I haven't actually approached anyone. So I might start doing that soon. Hopefully, we're going to start doing some more stuff on the National Front channel. I'm going to do a couple of interviews on there with people. That'll be separate to this. I'll keep this going, but I'll do that extra on there. So yeah, we've got all that going. I'll still be doing the live stream next week, but the following week I'm busy. So I'm going to have a week off after that. But next week I'll be going ahead as normal. So I'll try and get out and do a bit of filming as well while I'm in London, because in a couple of weeks' time I'll be going back out to Belfast. So I don't know when I'll be next over after that. So I think I'm going to call it a day in a minute. I'll just give it a couple of minutes in case anyone's got anything else that they want to talk about. Try and see if I can find that post from Nick Lowles. Yeah, I can't seem to find it. It's frustrating. That really, I think I might. In fact, did I screenshot that on my phone? I do. I do take quite a few screenshots. Sent to me, and not find them. If they can't find them, I'll find them eventually, but they're not. What's everyone else got? Did you see young Bob in Whitechapel yesterday? No, I didn't. I haven't seen that. No, he's the one that Hope Not Hate. They filmed him saying a lot of things, and really, he's just a kid. Really, what is he, about 18? And they sort of filmed him sort of slagging off a few people that, to be fair, probably needed slagging off. But yeah, it shows what low life they are doing things like that. I'll have to look for that. Is that on his channel? Is it the Whitechapel thing from yesterday? And then Max put MPs are rotten to the core, liars, cheats, and scumbags. At least one MP, Rupert Lowe, is trying. Yeah, he seems to be about the best one at the moment. A couple of the Northern Ireland ones are okay as well. They're by no means on our level, as Rupert Lowe isn't. But yeah, at least a couple of them are trying. Another thing I saw, can't even remember where I saw it now. I should have made better notes of that. Was that when they voted on scrapping the 2-child benefit thing, Reform voted 2 different ways. I think 4 or 5 of them voted against scrapping it, and 2 of them voted for scrapping. What's going on with Reform's MPs and what they're trying to do? But I think they're just trying to sell people a load of rubbish. I don't think they've got any intention of anything to help to help ordinary people. What's this one? I sometimes see you at loyalist parades in London. Surely NF is dead these days. We're not dead. We're still sort of fighting the fight. But the problem at the moment is when you've got people like Reform and whoever else, where they're getting all the publicity and things like that, it's very difficult to get noticed with the National Front doing things. Also, it's a bit like PA's protest on Saturday. I've looked on Stand Up to Racism's X feed to see if they're countering it. They're doing something in London instead. But when Tommy Robinson or UKIP do something, Hope Not Hate and Stand Up to Racism, they tend to sort of promote it. They tend to put it all over their social media so that people know about it. Even in people's workplaces, you get the union people at the massive Tommy Robinson protest. There was loads of people had them at their work. I had them at my work. There was like Stand Up to Racism things have been put up by union scumbags when they knew they had no chance of stopping it, and all they were doing was promoting it. But they try and promote it in a way that looks like they're not promoting it, if you get what I mean. So it does seem to me a lot like the far left do try and push and promote Tommy Robinson and Reform and various things like that. But when PA or the National Front have a protest, what they tend to do is they just tend to email or WhatsApp or whatever key activists and then maybe try and attack it or have some sort of protest without publicising it. So they know what they're doing. Even Hope Not Hate said when Tommy Robinson stood in 2019 in the European election, they decided to treat him differently and asked all the newspapers not to give him any publicity. And that was because he was standing in an election. They decided to treat him more like they would treat one of us or us than they would do him or his lot. NF isn't dead. Not the glory days of old, but we still have the only sanctioned nationalist presence in London for Remembrance Sunday. Yeah, well said, Mac. Yeah. There's also a loyalist event in London on Saturday. I won't be attending that because I'll be going to Warwick, but hopefully quite a few people will be going on that. Yeah. I'm going to call it a day now. Like I said, I don't think anyone's got anything. Haven't missed anything out. No, I think that's it. So thanks very much for coming, everyone. And like I said, I'll be doing this video. I'll go up as a podcast on Sunday, edited, and then I'll be doing another live stream. Well, I'll be going to PA's event on Saturday, 12 o'clock in Warwick. I'll be going to the paedophile sentencing in Highbury Corner on Tuesday, and then next Thursday I'll be doing another live stream at the usual time, and the following week there won't be one because I'll be having a week off. So so thanks very much, everyone. It's been a pleasure as always, and it's good to see quite a few regulars and a few new people as well. So thanks very much, everyone.